Well, I think what I was hoping for you, well, first of all, to give me sort of a overview of the development of a coffee culture in Salt Lake City, considering as a transplant, to me intuitively, those two things don't go together. So tell me what the coffee situation looked like in 1980.
Well, there was one other coffee shop. They were a bakery, and they had decent coffee, but their emphasis was being a bakery. And my approach was, Salt Lake wasn't a huge market, but if you have a good product, there's got to be some support for it. And originally, I was an executive chef at Snowbird, and I was going to open my own restaurant that, by the way, had good coffee. I wanted to do an haute cuisine restaurant that, by the way, had good coffee. And, I just developed the other way around. And, the support was for the coffee more than for the food. And, to this day, I think we have really good food, but we're not known for our food, we're known for our coffee and pastries. And so you just kind of got to go with the flow of things. But I was chefing up at Snowbird, and I couldn't find good coffee up there to buy, and so I bought a roaster and started roasting on my own. And for 2 years I did that before I opened my shop. And back then, it was hard to get good coffee in Salt Lake, and that was the reason I bought my own roaster and dove into that. I knew Mr. Pete from my visits to Berkeley. And
that's what I was going to ask. Is how you became a person who knew the difference between good and bad coffee.
Well, I did a lot of traveling when I was chefing up there. I was in charge of buying the wines for the private clubs, and so I went out to California 7 times a year, up to Napa Valley to buy wines. And I tasted good coffee, when I went into Berkeley, San Francisco area, and I would go back to Chicago for the food shows, and I would go to New York, and it was like, why is there good coffee here and not in Salt Lake? And I've come to the conclusion that, any product is only as good as what the people demand. And, the expectations here were low, perhaps because not that many people drank coffee. Transplants just dealt with the fact that they weren't going to get it, and the people who were here weren't interested in it. So, but over the years that's changed, and slowly evolved. I think, with the rise of the internet now, people are so aware of what's available, on a national, international level, that, before you were in your own community and kind of limited to what was available in your community. That's not the case anymore, It's a whole different way to approach buying and selling now than what was the case back 30 years ago.
Did the level of interest at the time you opened surprise you for coffee in particular?
Yeah, it was almost like a countercultural thing for the people that came in. They almost felt like it was their way of making a statement. And that wasn't my idea. I didn't have any vendetta against prevailing religious views or anything like that. I just wanted to have good coffee, and I didn't think it was rocket science to have it. And then buying good quality green beans and then roasting them right and getting rid of them quickly, and then of course then there's a brewing process. You always gotta, when you're serving it in a cup, it's got to be fresh and you got to use the right amount. A lot of times people would tend to make light roast or light quantities of it. If you don't put enough coffee in it doesn't taste right. Again, those are very subjective. Everybody has different opinions on what a good cup of coffee is. What's the perfect pizza? Is it thick crust or thin crust? Does it have a lot of sauce or a little sauce? A lot of cheese or a little cheese? You're going to fight over those all day long. And with coffee, what's the perfect roast? A darker roast or a lighter roast? And there's no correct answer to that. It's subjective depending on the person that's enjoying it.